Welcome to Left Africa.
So I want you to try a little thought experiment with us. Imagine you are the leader of a proudly sovereign nation.
Okay, setting the stage.
Right. You've got your own complex political ecosystem, your own constitution.
A whole functioning justice system.
Exactly. A justice system that just concluded a massive decade-long terrorism trial.
Which is a huge deal for any country.
It is. But now imagine an elected official from a completely different country just stands up on a global stage and tells you exactly who you must release from your highest security prison.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And just to ensure they have your undivided attention, they attach $1 billion price tag to the demand.
$1 billion.
$1 billion. Basically, release this prisoner or lose your funding. So as a leader, how do you even respond to that?
I mean, it creates a fascinating, almost, an impossible bind, really, because you are watching this real-time collision between national pride and just, cold, hard financial leverage.
And that is the exact scenario we are unpacking in today's deep dive.
It really is a wild story.
It is. We've got our hands on this highly sensitive dossier, and it details this explosive diplomatic standoff from July of 2026.
Right, a head-on collision between the United States and Nigeria.
Exactly. And it's all over a separatist leader named Nnamdi Kanu. But before we get into weeds, I want to set some ground rules for you listening.
Yeah, that's crucial here. We need an impartiality check.
Right, because what makes this dossier so compelling is that we are not going to take a side here. We aren't looking at this to decide if Kanu is, a heroic freedom fighter or a dangerous terrorist.
And we definitely aren't getting tangled in American partisan politics either.
No, absolutely not. The mission today is to look at the raw mechanics of global power. We're analyzing a high-stakes standoff between international financial leverage and national sovereignty.
Which, honestly, stripping away all the rhetoric, lets us look at how that power actually operates in the 21st century.
Right.
It forces us to examine the very real and, often uncomfortable machinery of international relations.
So let's just jump right into the timeline. We need to go back to July 23, 2026.
Okay.
We're on the floor of the United States House of Representatives, and a Michigan congressman named John James issues a direct ultimatum to Nigeria.
And keep in mind, Nigeria is Africa's largest economy. It's a massive regional power.
It's huge, but the demand is simple. Release Nnamdi Kanu or lose American aid.
Yeah, and the specific language Congressman James used on the floor is, it's critical to understanding the weight of this whole thing.
What exactly did he say?
Well, he framed Kanu's 2025 terrorism conviction as a, quote, farce show trial.
Oh, wow. A farce.
Yeah, but then he took it a step further. He explicitly tied U.S. foreign aid to this issue.
By saying what?
He stated right there on the congressional record, we will not continue to fund a Christian genocide.
Okay, wait. A Christian genocide. That is an incredibly heavy accusation to just throw across the Atlantic.
It really is.
And this wasn't just like a spontaneous remark, right? Our sources say this was designed to back a specific resolution.
Yes, exactly. A resolution he introduced a few months prior in May of 2026. It's House Resolution 1321.
Got it. And what does that resolution actually do?
It demands that the Nigerian government either retry Kanu, according to international human rights standards, or, and this is the big part, release him immediately and unconditionally.
Immediately and unconditionally.
Right. So James's floor speech was entirely about rallying his colleagues to get behind this resolution, basically by framing the Nigerian state as an enabler of violence against Christians.
Okay, I have to pause here because I am trying to wrap my head around the scale of this threat.
It's massive.
If you think about it in a corporate sense, this feels like a venture capitalist who holds the purse strings threatening to pull all your funding, unless the CEO of the startup fires a specific regional manager.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually.
It's this massive financial threat being used to dictate a completely internal decision. But wait, John James is just one congressman? There are 435 representatives in the U.S. House. If you are sitting in Abuja, do you really care what one single representative says? I mean, does a single congressman actually have the mechanical power to cut off a sovereign nation's aid package?
So, on his own, acting in a complete vacuum, no.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the U.S. legislative system is built on all these little choke points. And this resolution sits in the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
Oh, so he's on the committee that handles the money.
Exactly. That committee has real appropriations teeth. Foreign aid isn't just, a permanent, untouchable wire transfer that happens automatically.
It requires approval.
It requires annual reauthorization.
So they literally control the flow of the money.
They shape exactly how the money is spent, so a single member can act as a catalyst.
Ah, I see.
If a resolution like this gains traction, especially if it picks up co-sponsors from the very active Christian right wing of the Congressional Caucus, who are obviously highly sensitive to that genocide framing James used, it moves very quickly.
It stops being just a speech.
Right. It moves from a symbolic gesture to a binding amendment. It can become a literal condition attached to an omnibus spending bill.
Wow. So he is basically holding a match next to a very large pile of diplomatic dynamite.
That's exactly what he's doing.
But to really understand why a U.S. lawmaker is willing to risk alienating a major African ally over one single man, we have to look at who that man is.
Right. Nnamdi Kanu.
And we need to look at why Nigeria went to such extraordinary lengths to lock him away in the first place.
So Kanu is the founder and leader of the Indigenous People of Biafra, or IPOB for short. He started it back in 2012.
And IPOB's entire mission, according to the dossier, is dedicated to agitating for an independent Biafran state. Right?
Yes. Carved out of Nigeria's southeast and parts of the South regions.
The sources note that he built this massive, fiercely loyal following very quickly.
He did. And he did it largely through his broadcasts on Radio Biafra.
Oh, right, because radio is still such a powerful tool there.
Extremely powerful. And those broadcasts were highly effective. Kanu really tapped into a very deep historical well of marginalization and disillusionment among young Igbo people in that region.
The rhetoric was pretty intense too, right?
Very. It mixed this anti-state defiance with biblical prophecy, which turned him into a deeply, deeply polarizing figure.
So to his followers.
To his followers, he is an absolute folk hero fighting an oppressive state.
But to the government.
To the Nigerian government in Abuja, he represents an existential threat to the unity of the entire country.
And the Nigerian state reacted with massive force to that threat.
They didn't hold back.
In 2017, they officially designated IPOB as a terrorist organization.
Yes.
And that same year, the military launched a major raid on Kanu's family home in Abia State. The dossier calls it a bloody crackdown known as Operation Python Dance.
Operation Python Dance. And that raid was what forced Kanu to flee the country entirely.
He just left.
He had to. But even though he was gone, the Nigerian intelligence apparatus never stopped hunting him.
They tracked him for years.
They did. And in June of 2021, Kanu was arrested in Kenya.
In Kenya? Wait, how did they get him back?
He was brought back to Nigeria by the Department of State Services, which is Nigeria's secret police.
Wow. Our sources point out that his legal team argued this was an extraordinary rendition that violated international law.
Yeah, the mechanics of exactly how he was grabbed and brought back are highly controversial.
I can imagine.
It was heavily contested.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of the Nigerian state, they didn't care. They got their fugitive.
Right.
They put him on trial, and in November 2025, a federal high court in Abuja convicted him on terrorism-related charges.
And they gave him a life sentence.
Life in prison.
He is currently serving that sentence in Sokoto prison. And if you look at a political and cultural map of Nigeria, this is fascinating. Sokoto is all the way up in the far Muslim-majority northwest.
It's so far away.
It is as geographically and culturally isolated from his southeastern power base as you can possibly get.
It's very intentional.
Just think about the sheer political energy, the intelligence resources, and the international risk Nigeria spent over the course of a decade just to capture, prosecute, and imprison this one man.
The investment was monumental for them.
It really was.
And because of that, the Nigerian state's official narrative is completely sealed. To them, the man jumped bail, he was brought back, he faced their sovereign justice system, and he was convicted of terrorism.
Case closed.
Exactly. As far as the government is concerned, the highest courts have spoken, and the file is permanently closed.
Which is exactly what makes Congressman James's intervention so incredibly disruptive.
He essentially kicks the door in.
He does. He rips that case file back open for the entire world to see.
Right. By demanding Kanu's release on the House floor, James is completely bypassing the domestic judicial process.
Yeah.
He is sending a very clear message. Your local courts don't matter. Your terrorism designation doesn't matter, and your internal security calculations just don't matter. You must release him or else.
And that brings us to the leverage itself. The money. Nigeria considers Kanu a convicted terrorist, but the U.S. is using its massive checkbook to force a reversal. When you put a price tag on a demand like this, you have to look closely at the ledger.
You really do.
what does this U.S. funding actually look like mechanically?
Well, it is an enormous amount of capital. According to the U.S. State Department and USA data in our dossier, American assistance to Nigeria generally fluctuates between $900 million and $1.2 billion annually.
That is a lot of leverage.
It is. If we look specifically at 2023, the U.S. committed over $1.1 billion.
Over $1 billion in a single year.
And this money isn't just sitting in a bank. It is woven deep into the physical infrastructure of Nigerian society.
Where does it go?
Roughly $650 million of that went directly to health programs, primarily PEPFAR.
Remind me, that's the HIV program, right?
Yes, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. So this isn't abstract funding. It literally pays for the supply chains of life-saving HIV on AIDS treatments.
Wow, okay.
Another $120 million went to humanitarian response, particularly for food and shelter in the conflict-heavy Northeast.
Got it.
And then there is the vital security assistance.
Now, this is where it gets really crazy. When you look closely at that security assistance, there is a massive, almost unbelievable irony staring us right in the face.
The dossier actually calls it a brutal irony.
Brutal irony is right. Break that down for us.
So the United States actively partners with Nigeria on counterterrorism.
Right.
Washington designates groups operating in Nigeria, like Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa, as foreign terrorist organizations.
As they should.
Right. And to combat them, the U.S. shares critical intelligence, they fund military equipment, and they literally train Nigerian special forces.
Okay, let me just make sure I have this straight.
Yeah, go ahead.
The U.S. security apparatus is pouring money, weapons, and expertise into helping the Nigerian military fight terrorism.
Correct.
But simultaneously, a U.S. lawmaker is trying to leverage that exact same funding apparatus to demand the release of a man that Nigeria just convicted of terrorism.
That's exactly what's happening. The contradiction is just staggering.
It's like having a fitness coach who pays for your gym membership.
Okay, I see where you're going.
But then they turn around and threaten to cancel the membership unless you agree to eat a dozen donuts every single day.
It makes absolutely no sense from the host country's perspective. It places the Nigerian government in a devastating position.
I mean, if that aid is cut.
If it's cut, it isn't just a line item on a spreadsheet that disappears. Clinics run out of antiretrovirals.
People die.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Military units lose intelligence sharing. And Nigeria is already in a really precarious financial state.
Right, because of their debt.
According to the 2026 budget figures in our sources, debt service obligations were consuming over 90% of government revenue in some quarters.
90%.
They cannot easily replace $1 billion. They just can't.
So with over $1 billion of vital health, humanitarian, and security aid on the line for a country already drowning in debt service, you would expect a fiery response from the capital.
You'd think so.
How did the Nigerian government actually react to this ultimatum?
Well, as of late July 2026, the official response from the Nigerian government was absolute silence.
Just nothing.
Silence. President Bola Tinubu, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Attorney General's office, none of them issued a formal statement.
Not even a tweet.
No furious diplomatic cable, no press conference denouncing foreign interference, nothing.
I find that stunning.
It is surprising.
Because if you understand Nigeria's foundational identity, this is the giant of Africa. This is a nation that prides itself on continental leadership.
They lead the ECOWAS regional bloc, right?
Yes, and they often dictate terms to neighboring countries during crises. They bankroll African Union peacekeeping missions. Their entire geopolitical brand is built on being the heavyweight that answers to nobody.
Right.
So for a single foreign lawmaker to issue a humiliating public ultimatum and for Abuja to respond with just total paralysis, that speaks volumes.
The silence is basically the sound of a government completely trapped by its ledger. But while the Nigerian government was paralyzed, IPOB was not.
Of course not.
Within 48 hours of Congressman James's speech, IPOB spokesperson Emma Powerful released a highly publicized statement.
I assume they saw this as a massive victory.
Oh, they welcomed the intervention enthusiastically. They publicly commended James for his, quote, courage.
And for the Nigerian state, this has to be the absolute worst nightmare realized.
It is.
Because it completely shatters the government's entire strategy for dealing with IPOB.
Exactly. For years, the Nigerian state strategy was containment and delegitimization.
Keep him quiet, keep him marginalized.
All right. They needed to isolate Kanu and frame IPOB as a fringe, violent criminal enterprise. They wanted to strip them of any political legitimacy on the global stage.
And John James just bypassed all of that and handed IPOB this glittering prize of international validation.
He practically co-signed their narrative right on the floor of the U.S. Capitol.
Yeah. By demanding Kanu's release, James is endorsing the framing that Kanu isn't a terrorist at all, but rather a political prisoner facing a sham trial.
And all of it tied to this broader narrative of anti-Christian persecution.
Right.
It provides incredible oxygen to a movement that the Nigerian state has spent a decade trying to suffocate.
It has to embolden IPOB's supporters on the ground, too.
Absolutely. It complicates the local politics in the Southeast for governors who are just trying to maintain peace, and it pushes President Tinubu into an incredibly dangerous political corner.
So Tinubu is basically staring down $1 billion gun. He has to react eventually.
He can't hide forever.
But if you look at the political geography of Nigeria, any move he makes detonates a different landmine. Let's look at his options. What happens if he simply maintains the silence and leaves Kanu in Sokoto prison?
Doing nothing might seem like the safest play initially, but the damage is already done.
How so?
Even if James's resolution never passes the committee, the demand is now permanently on the international record. It completely alters the diplomatic weather.
Oh, I see.
Every future human rights report or State Department briefing will reference this standoff. It signals to other lawmakers that they can attach conditional riders to Nigerian aid packages.
So maintaining the status quo just leaves the sword constantly hanging over Nigeria's neck?
Precisely.
Okay, so if doing nothing is just a slow bleed, what happens if he capitulates? What if he caves to the pressure and actually releases Kanu?
To understand why that is nearly impossible, you really have to look at how Nigerian elections work.
Break it down for us.
President Tinubu is a Yoruba Muslim from the southwest of Nigeria. And the Nigerian political system is a very delicate balancing act between the predominantly Muslim north and the largely Christian south.
Meaning he cannot govern relying solely on his home region.
Right. He mathematically needs the massive voting bloc of the north to sustain his coalition and just survive politically.
And how does the north view Kanu?
That northern base views Nnamdi Kanu and IPOB not just as a nuisance, but as an existential threat to the unity of Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
So if Tinubu is seen by his northern allies as capitulating to American pressure just to free an Igbo separatist, the domestic backlash would be explosive.
It would look incredibly weak.
The optics of the giant of Africa bowing to a single U.S. congressman would be completely devastating for his presidency at home.
Okay, so ignoring it leaves the aid vulnerable, and giving in is domestic political suicide. What if he takes the third path?
Which is?
What if he steps up to the podium, vigorously asserts Nigerian sovereignty, and just tells Washington to stay out of their internal justice system?
Wow, that would play brilliantly at home.
Right. It asserts sovereignty, rallies national pride across all regions.
It would. But it risks catastrophic financial consequences. If he pushes back hard and angers the U.S. congressional committees that control the appropriations, the threat becomes real.
They might actually cut the money.
If they cut the PEPFAR funding or the security assistance, Nigeria's public health infrastructure and military logistics simply cannot absorb that shock.
I mean, I keep looking for a backdoor here.
Everyone is.
In normal diplomatic disagreements, isn't there usually some kind of quiet off-ramp? Like, couldn't they orchestrate some kind of negotiated administrative release?
Like what?
Like maybe Kanu goes free on some medical technicality, the U.S. gets what it wants quietly, and the Nigerian government saves face.
Well, under different circumstances, quiet diplomacy would definitely be the standard playbook.
Yeah.
But Congressman James deliberately didn't do this quietly.
Because of the floor speech.
Right. He stood on the House floor and explicitly used the word genocide. He attached the highest possible moral stakes to the demand in full view of the entire public.
You can't just quietly sweep genocide under the rug.
Exactly. When a foreign official uses explosive language like that, quiet diplomacy evaporates. He created a trap where Nigeria literally cannot escape without bleeding, either politically at home or financially abroad.
Wow. When you pull back from the specific details of Kanu's imprisonment or, the exact mechanics of the U.S. Appropriations Committee, what is the big picture takeaway for you here? What does this dossier actually reveal about how the world works?
Synthesizing all of these moving parts reveals a deeply, deeply uncomfortable reality about the nature of sovereignty today.
Yeah.
This is no longer just a story about a separatist leader in a Nigerian prison or a congressman in Michigan. It is a story about conditional sovereignty.
Conditional sovereignty.
It exposes this massive gap between the independence that nations claim to have on paper and the independence they can actually exercise in practice when a major check writer calls in a debt.
It highlights the difference between having the legal right to enforce your own laws and having the actual material power to sustain those laws when a global superpower threatens your bank account.
It really shows that in a world structured by foreign aid and international debt, the lines of domestic justice can be completely rewritten by external leverage.
Which is terrifying, honestly.
It's a stark reminder that sovereignty isn't just a flag or a seat at the United Nations. It is an ongoing, fragile project. And for many nations relying on aid, that sovereignty remains radically incomplete.
Which brings us right back to the thought experiment we started with today. If the giant of Africa, a nation with immense resources, a massive population, and real regional dominance, can be forced into a paralyzed corner by a single foreign lawmaker's resolution, it begs a much larger question for you to talk about.
A very important question.
In the 21st century, does true national sovereignty actually exist for any country that accepts foreign aid? Or is it just an illusion waiting for the day the bill comes due?
It's a chilling question,
Yeah.
and it's the exact reality that global leaders have to navigate every single day.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the narratives, keep looking closely at the mechanical levers of power, and keep exploring the complex layers behind the headlines. We will catch you next time.